Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Now You Know conversation with Family Values at Work. My name is Sammy Chavin Grant. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm our federal policy manager. If you're new to Family Values at Work, we are a national movement network that's rooted in 27 states right now. And we work with a national network of partners, including a lot of the folks on this call, to work on paid family and medical leave, paid sick and safe days, and affordable childcare. And since it's Small Business Week, we are digging in on how paid leave is good for small businesses. And we've got a great group for conversation today. So why don't we start with Deborah? You're right next to me on my screen. Why don't we go around and each introduce ourselves? And if you all could share just a little bit about what you think about when you think about paid leave in small business.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sammy. My name's Deborah Brown. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the executive director of Good Business Colorado. We're an organization of values driven business owners working to build a more prosperous, equitable, and sustainable Colorado. We have over 460 members in 23 counties across the state of Colorado. And we've worked really hard, actually, since the inception of our organization to help bring paid family and medical leave to Colorado, working in partnership with Family Values at Work and 9 to 5 Colorado and a broad coalition of organizations. And I can't wait to get into the details of talking about what this policy means to our members as small businesses that are working so hard to take care of their employees, and why it's such a game changer to level the playing field for small businesses and being able to provide this benefit and be competitive and to take care of their employees and themselves in the ways that they want to.
Awesome. Thanks, Deborah. Gina, why don't you share a little bit about Prosperity Now?
Yeah, thanks, Sammy. Hi, everyone. My name is Gina Kelly. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a policy associate at Prosperity Now. We're a national nonprofit dedicated to making the economy work for everyone and making sure that it is free and fair and removed of all structural racism. And so I'm really proud to be a member of our policy team where I handle our paid leave work. And I come to the organization with a history of paid leave work, which I'm really excited to bring as paid leave is newer to our work. And we're really excited to be a part of this conversation with everyone on the call today. And I think when I think of paid leave and small business, I think it makes sense, right? Like what I love about paid leave is that it's a common sense policy that everyone can connect to and it makes sense. And so, I think too often, especially here in DC where we're based, small businesses are used as a reason to not support paid leave. And to me, that just is absolutely a false dichotomy. We know that paid leave, is so important to everyone, and that doesn't matter if you're at a small business or not. Small businesses are so important to our communities, and they really want to provide for their employees and for themselves. And it's one of those policies that I think is just, once you talk to people about it, they get it.
Absolutely. And I know we've got two folks from Minnesota, and we're going to get into the exciting news out of Minnesota. But first, Elisha, if you're available to introduce yourself, we would love to know a little more about you, and then Mel.
Yes, I just want to make sure you can hear me. Yes, okay. My name is Elijah. Yes, I am in Golden Valley, Minnesota. And pay leave is very, very important here in Minnesota for us. It's very relatable. As a small business owner, I feel like it's support and relief. It's a question that I wouldn't have to answer anymore in my day to day business life. And also, it provides a safety net for my employees as well. So when I think of paid medical leave, I just look at it as support for a small business owner.
Thank you so much. And Mel, if you want to share a little bit about yourself and Main Street Alliance.
Yes, thank you, Sammy. Hi, my name's Mel. I'm the Minnesota organizer for Main Street Alliance. If you're watching from afar, you might know that there's so much movement in the Minnesota legislature this year, which is good for organizing and also, more reason to organize because bills are just getting passed and, folks aren't just virtue signaling. They're actually passing bills and making impact and, all of this getting written into law. So that's something I'm excited about. I joined MSA in 2021 as an intern and took on a full-time position last year. Main Street Alliance, we organize small business owners. So we build power with folks on Main Street, as well as community supporters to organize towards a more just, more equitable local economy. We believe all these investments will benefit small businesses. And in Minnesota, particularly, we've had a lot of sole proprietors in our membership. And so when we think of paid leave, it's more than just, for employees, but also folks, true small business owners who are, very likely to share a lot of similarities with your workers themselves, and also sole proprietors. We have like artists, we have hairstylists who've spoken to, I can't just cut hair on Zoom if I break my wrist, and what am I going to do then? And yeah, really proud of the work that we have done so far and all that we've built. So thanks for having us here.
No, today's conversation could not be more timely. If you don't know, I'm excited to break the news. Last night, the Minnesota House passed paid family and medical leave, and I know there's been a ton of movement, as Mel and Elisha were just referencing. But Mel and Elisha, do you want to tell us a little bit more about where the campaign's been and kind of where you see us going, and if you think Minnesota is going to become the 13th place, joining 11 states and Washington, D.C. to pass paid leave?
Yes, I can take this question, and then I would love for Elisha to speak to sort of like the impact of paid leave on small businesses. So I believe this bill, I came in 2021, but to my understanding, this bill has been worked on for close to a decade. And it's been through several different versions. We have a really strong coalition in Minnesota that's made up of almost 60 organizations, including small businesses, unions, teachers, nurses, etc. And yeah, we just passed the House. I think a lot of it has been like on the ground organizing and making sure that, communities know about this bill and know like what this impact is on them. And Sammy, can you actually repeat the question again?
Yeah, I would love to know more about the bill itself. I know, there are different kinds of paid leave and what makes you excited about the bill, and then what that would look like as a small business owner. Elisha, would love to hear, as we're getting to that finish line, what you're thinking about and what you're hopeful for.
Yeah, perfect. So yes, the bill was written to, initially, it's a universal program, as we all know, social insurance program that would provide up to 12 weeks of medical leave and up to 12 weeks of family leave. The family leave would include caregiving, include bonding. They write the family definition, so really broad, which is really great. And so it includes like a new addition to your family, right? Could be like a foster child, could be like adoption, birth, and then the medical leave would include all the other like medical I don't want to say conditions, but like pregnancy, a lot of things that involve like, yourself. While the family leave it also includes safety leave. Last night, I think, passed the amendment to shorten it to 18 weeks as we try to, kind of like piece the two House and Senate versions of the bill together. But the bill was written with a lot of small business input. And we also now have, through another amendment, a small business premium support. And so small businesses with fewer than 30 employees will not have to pay premiums on the first $50,000 per year per employee. And then they like have a system in place to ensure that as you reach that 30 employees, the cliff wouldn't be like, a huge drop off. We don't know what that, will look like yet. I'm not sure if it has passed the House floor before, but I know for sure it has not passed the Senate floor before, which is where we're expecting it to go. Which is where we know it's going to go, but expecting it to happen relatively quickly. And so the organizing is, really making sure that folks are able to have a presence at the Capitol with all this uncertainty and just like, leveraging our people power. And now I'll pass it to Elisha for the small business.
Yes, Mel pretty much covered it all, and Mel has been amazing on this bill and staying on the ground level. And what it looks like from a small business perspective is showing up. We have been showing up continuously, fighting and understanding that the power is in the presence, y'all. We have been, every day that we was invited to the Capitol, we were there. So I will say that's what it looks like from a small business aspect, and actually being on the ground level and actually being in the neighborhood and being in the community and getting, and spreading the word. We have shown up to town halls. We have shown up to rallies.
Well, Elisha, I think we lost you there, hoping that maybe you get back to a place where, I think I hear you there.
Oh,
Are
I'm
you
sorry. Okay. Yep.
good?
Sorry. I was clicked on a message pop up. Okay. And for me as a small business owner, this is very important for me because just last October, I had emergency surgery to have my gallbladder removed. And this is something that I needed, not only just for me, but also my employees. And I had to take emergency leave, which ended up, they wanted me out for 3 weeks. I ended up having to take an additional week and a half off. So this was something that actually I could speak to and actually needed at that time, which sucked the savings out of me of being a small business, starting during COVID, inflation, and just everything that's going on just in the real world. Um, this is something I strongly believe that not only Minnesota deserves, everyone deserves as a small business aspect. We're fighting every day to keep our doors open. So I feel like this, as a necessity, we're going to continue fighting to get this through. So a small business aspect is looking good, and I have faith in it.
Thank you both so much. I think it's really exciting to imagine that the number could be 13 states very soon that have passed paid family and medical leave. And Deborah, I feel like this is just a natural chance to pivot to you when it comes to people power. The fight was all about people in Colorado. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about what that journey looked like. I know the folks at 9 to 5 Colorado and your coalition kept pushing and would love to hear more for you now that you're in a state that's getting ready to make the program live, what that's looking like. And also, how can we help support you as it's coming live?
Thanks so much, Sammy. Yeah, so I was first introduced to paid family and medical leave policy right when we started Good Business Colorado. We were just coming out of a huge victory after having passed Amendment 70 here in Colorado to raise the minimum wage to $12 by 2020. And we invited our community partners in that campaign to come present to our members. We're a member-led organization and organizing organization. So pretty much everything we do is based on what our members tell us their priority and needs are. So we invited our community partners to come and present on the campaigns they're working on ahead of our very first legislative session back in 2017. And Neha was leading 9 to 5 at the time, and she came and she presented on paid family and medical leave. And I thought, oh, this is great. This is nice. I was pregnant at the time, and then I had my child. And by the time that we had officially launched Good Business Colorado and we were into the 2017 legislative session, it was like an entirely different conversation for me. Now, having been through the process of having a child myself, I realized this is not just something that's good for business, but it is literally cruel and inhumane to ask a mother to go back to work within 3 days of giving birth. It's just unfathomable. And over the years, we 9 to 5 led the campaign in Colorado probably well over a decade. Every year, the same thing like in Minnesota, every year making a little bit further. The first year we made it out of the House, but we died in the Senate committee. And just pushing and having our members be there to tell their stories every step of the way and what it would mean for them. It was really it was inspiring and also heartbreaking. We had a member whose employee lost their spouse because she literally didn't have paid time off to go get diagnosed, and the cancer killed her before she could ever even get treatment. We've had members talk about how they've lost employees who just had to have a knee surgery. They literally could not afford to take unpaid leave. And this employer literally, taking out a second lien, a second mortgage on their house to be able to try and fill that gap and still not being able to make a difference. And no business owner and no employee should ever be forced to be put in that situation. And so that's what we just kept showing up and telling every year with more members, more business owners telling their stories about what it would mean to have access to paid family and medical leave. for not only just for bringing a child into the world, which is I think what a lot of people think about with paid family and medical leave, but this audience probably knows taking care of oneself or a loved one during an extreme medical emergency. And here in Colorado, well, I'll get to the specificities of what makes the Colorado policy so great. But, we fought through the legislature. We succeeded in passing a study bill in which they put together a task force. And we really didn't know what to expect when we got this task force passed. We did have a member, Edwin Zoasomama. He's been a leader of our campaign for paid family medical leave since the start. And he was appointed to that task force along with Judith Marquez from 9 to 5 and Kathy from Colorado Fiscal Institute. And then they had some folks that were really, really hardcore right wing. I don't know a better way to say, like, just very anti any type of social insurance program, any public benefit. And so miraculously enough, that task force came out, I believe it was like 17 recommendations that they agreed on across the board. This means the libertarians, the folks who literally don't believe in social insurance policy, but at least could see the mathematics and understand, as a country, the United States, we're getting hammered by countries that have paid family and medical leave policy. So there's an economic case to be made for passing paid family and medical leave, even beyond the morality of it. And when you compare us to other industrialized countries, we're one of 2 countries in the entire world. It's us and Papua New Guinea. Us and Papua New Guinea. This is now my 6-year-old who was born out of this paid family and medical leave campaign, or DREAM It. He talks about it, and he talks about how crazy it is that it's just us and Papua New Guinea are the only 2 countries in the world. Pick any other country. We have paid family and medical leave. They have paid family and medical leave. So in any case, I apologize. I digress. Obviously, this is something that means a lot to me in our organization. But we got those 17 recommendations coming out of the task force. And we tried to go back again to the legislature to say, this incredibly diverse group of individuals that understand that it's an economic issue, not just a morality issue, and it's a leveling the playing field for businesses. They still couldn't get it done. And so we said, you know what? We're going to take it to the people. And that's what we did. In 2020, in the height of the pandemic, we launched a very grassroots organizing campaign because we know people are on our side. We know that intuitively people understand that paid family and medical leave is a win-win. It's something that we desperately need for all parties involved. And we won big. We won in counties where Trump won big. We won across the state of Colorado by large margins. And I think that's really a testament to people power and understanding the importance of this policy. And so now we look forward to supporting it being passed on a federal level, because as we move into implementation here in Colorado, it can't come soon enough. January 1st is the day where this campaign that 9 to 5 Colorado has led for decades will come to fruition, and people will finally be able to not be forced into a situation of choosing between their livelihood and their taking care of themselves or a loved one. So we're incredibly excited, not only to bring the policy to life here in Colorado, and we saw a whole different part of the process and implementation. We were part of an amicus brief to defend the policy against folks who said it was unconstitutional, which got slapped down very quickly, thankfully. And now just really, again, that importance of having businesses in every step of the process, including the rules and regulations. A Better Balance is a great partner in this part of the process as well, and really helping our members to understand this is what the law says, this is what it means, and how will this impact small business? Because as they say, the devil's in the details. So there we go.
Deborah, way to condense 10 plus years of advocacy with such passion and such fire. I think the thing that everybody on this call can share is that paid leave is complicated, right? Like, we have to get the members of the legislature to understand. We need the administration and the agencies to join us. We need the public. And that's why we do this as a network and as coalitions, right? If we don't have small businesses at the table and unions and families, we're missing something. And I love I actually have chills just thinking about your energy and the fire, going from, just passing in Colorado, but really looking for the whole country, right? Because it's something we all deserve. And I think everybody on this call, and probably everyone listening, whether you are a parent or a caregiver right now, I bet you in your life might need time to care for yourself. And it is such an important policy. And Gina, I know that Prosperity Now is newer to working on paid family and medical leave, though you yourself are not. Full disclosure for our viewers, Gina and I have had the pleasure of working together in the paid leave space on and off for like 5 years at this point. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit about how Prosperity Now, as a national network, is stepping into paid leave, and maybe why in this moment is it something that's bubbling up for your members?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sammy. And as always, it's good to see you. Yeah, I was thrilled when I joined Prosperity Now to hear that they were including paid leave in their future work. When I joined, it was shortly before this new year of 2023, which is somehow not new anymore, which is baffling. But when I joined, they said, we're entering the paid leave fight. We want to get in there. It's time. And I said, fantastic. I know who would love to do that work for you. It would be me. And so it's been a thrill to work with our federal policy team to sort of flesh out what that's going to look like for us. And it's involved conversations with our network of folks on the state level, and also on my end as a member of the federal policy team, a lot of work of networking with all the paid leave folks that I'm lucky enough to know here in DC who work on a federal policy. And I think one of those, like I mentioned earlier, it's one of those policies that it feels impossible to be against, right? Like it's one of those fights that you can't help but want to be in. It impacts everyone. When I talk about paid leave, which I somehow find a way to weasel into every single conversation, anytime I talk about like, these are all the reasons you might need paid leave in your life, everyone I talk to goes, oh, there's a moment that me or myself or my loved one could have really needed that. Like that would have made a big difference when we were, welcoming a new child into our family, or when, granddad was sick, and if they're lucky enough to have had paid leave because of their workplace or their state, and all the organizers who have made that happen, they go, I'm so lucky that I had paid leave. And no one should have to be lucky to meet this basic need. It's not about luck. It's not about geographic barriers. It's not about your state line. It is about the fact that everyone deserves to be able to take time to care for themselves and their loved ones in their times of need. And as someone who's working on the federal level, it's so frustrating to see that paid leave is good enough for our elected officials, right? It's good enough for so many federal employees. And yet the people that they represent are too often left high and dry with nothing to make ends meet. And, it's that dichotomy of, we know where we stand and we're on the right side here. And so Prosperity Now's history of working on issues like entrepreneurship and small business has always focused on the benefits of Black and Brown communities, and we've recently published work on inclusive entrepreneurship, and with this goal of recognizing that we need to improve outcomes for Black and Brown owned businesses, particularly small businesses. And part of our commitment to that, and why I see those so connected to the paid leave fight, is Black and Brown owned small businesses are so uniquely set up to bring those good jobs with good benefits to their communities. Right. So we know that those people are just uniquely set up to be cornerstones of community, to, provide good jobs and good wages. And that's so essential in our country when our economy too often fails Black and Brown people and other low-income people of color. And so to me, all the pieces come together here, right? Where it's about business, it's about the right thing to do. It's about so many other countries have made it work. It's about the fact that it works for our elected officials. And there's so many ways where this is just a common sense policy. And it feels like today there's not many of those, and this is one that clicks. And so we're really excited to be building our work in this space, and I'm really excited to be talking about it during Small Business Week, because as I've mentioned on the Hill, it is such the first argument you come up against. It's too hard on small businesses don't want it, and I just go, that's not true. Small businesses do want it. Their employees deserve it. Their owners deserve it. And so I'm really excited to be in the space celebrating Small Business Week and paid leave, and really excited to be continuing the fight on the Hill.
Thanks, Gina. I think the through line here that I'm, hearing in Minnesota, which we neglected to mention earlier, it made it through 19 committees to pass the House in Minnesota, 19 committees, and a decade of organizing. So I have a really important question for you all. How do you stay motivated and how do you stay engaged in the work? Because I think what this is about is the long game, right? We have the example in Colorado, we have the example in Minnesota, and let me correct myself, it's 19 committees between both the House and Senate. So we're like halfway there-ish. So right, we've got the first chamber down and we're going for the second. So how do we stay engaged in the fight and how do we stay motivated knowing that it takes a long time, but we're doing it right? You know, what everyone's described here and what Family Values at Work and our network is really passionate about is passing an equitable program. So that means job protection. That means adequate wage replacement, particularly with an eye to low income earners so that you're not being priced out of a program you're paying into. And that means having an inclusive family definition. And that's because we know that this needs to work for all communities. So question for everybody who's here, and maybe why don't we start with Elisha, since you are, literally making time as a small business owner to show up and do advocacy on top of your personal life, on top of caring for your employees. How do you stay motivated?
Staying motivated. I do have two little ones too that I'm actually kind of preaching for, and really just keep an eye on the prize and knowing what's the end result and how do we know unless we continue to fight. So honestly, just walking in faith and understanding that it's gonna get done if we stick to it.
Mm. It's so true, especially if we stick to it. Deborah, how about you? Having been through this and now entering implementation, how do you stay motivated, especially when implementation is a piece that's, a little bit less exciting than active campaign mode? How do you stay motivated and keep your folks engaged too?
Well, first of all, we have tremendous partners that are really doing the heavy lifting on implementation. They know, and everyone knows that, like, for everybody, activism, it takes time. But when you've got partners like 9 to 5 and Better Balance that are doing so much of the heavy lifting with like analyzing the proposed rules and then really bringing us in at strategic moments where our members' business voices are really needed to kind of, especially to say, hey, other business lobby groups, you don't represent small businesses, and you certainly don't represent small businesses that care about more than just maximizing profits. And we actually think it's really important that, yes, business owners have to be able to challenge a decision, and you have to make sure that employees are able to take the need that they are entitled to under this program. And so just really, I think the partnerships of strategic moments. For me personally, there's like a fire in my belly on this issue, unlike anything I've ever experienced. And I think it's because, like with any organizing campaign, the people who are most directly impacted are the ones who are most impassioned about it. And unfortunately, I'd like to say that in the time since we passed paid family and medical leave, lives haven't been lost and families haven't been destroyed because of the lack of the leave being accessible immediately. That's just not true. I hear stories all the time. Just this morning, I was on a call with a new member who came to the US from Africa when she was 8 years old. She had a really traumatic birthing experience, also based in the fact we have a racist medical system in many ways. And she has a special needs child, and she's trying to run her business and still be that parent that she wants to be. And, if this policy were available to her today, it would take one of the greatest stressors off the table of just that simple wage replacement is such a game changer for our entrepreneurs, especially our sole proprietors, that if they're not working it, they're not getting paid, but they have kids that have needs as well. And so I think it's just the realness of this issue and the pressing need is so great. How could you not stay engaged and motivated?
Thank you. Mel, how about you? What keeps you going, especially in the middle of an active, hard-fought campaign?
So this is actually my first campaign ever. And yeah, because I came in through a community organizing internship to MSA, and I've always had a public health background, so that, this has always been something that, was interesting to me. I think what really keeps me motivated is, I think, just like all these conversations that make it happen. So Elisha, I know we were actually working on something completely like different in Minneapolis. And then one day she called me and said, "Hey, Val, like I have to go for this surgery. Do you know any resources? Like, what do I do?" I'm like, "Oh, let me tell you what. There is nothing. You're right." And it just like snowballed from there. And that was like last summer. And so to work with folks like Elijah and help her do turnout, and she turned folks out for a day of action, and really working closely with folks to support them, making sure they're not burnt out, but also able to have that opportunity to take action on something that impacts them, is something that's really special to me. And I think for me, I didn't really know a lot about small businesses until I joined MSA or started working for MSA. And so like being able to honor my ancestors who have peddled on the streets and for survival, and not seeing them as small businesses, but I'm now realizing that they were also small business owners who didn't get all these investments. And so being able to like center myself in then honoring that, and then working with folks like Elisha and having these conversations have been really motivating and energizing.
Thank you. And Gina, how about you?
Yeah, I don't mean to be like glib at all, but it's really easy to fight for something when you know you're right. Like this is one of those things that there's not a doubt in my mind that this is the thing to fight for. Like, yes, there are nuances. Yes, paid leave is complicated. Yes, you have to be concerned about all these different aspects of the policy. But at the end of the day, I know that this is a policy that is right for everyone. Everyone needs this. And so it's so invigorating to be on these calls with, and I will say, here with so many women and, people of color who are in this fight. And when you look at history, people who are on those sides, we're right. And I think paid leave is one of those things, like I said, that every person I talk to, no matter their background, gets it, right? Like they understand that this is just common sense. It's so heartbreaking to hear these stories of people who are facing, really impossible decisions between the health of themselves and their loved ones, their financial stability, their ability to make ends meet. And it's so important to know, like, this is a choice. This is a policy choice that we allow people to do this. And so there's nothing that makes me want to go to work every day than to know that I'm in the fight to get this done. And that one day, no one has to make that choice anymore. And we get to help everyone sleep a little easier at night.
Oh, Gina, that's perfect. And thank you, everybody. I think for folks who are watching, and in my personal life, people ask me, how do you keep doing this? It's not done yet. And it's because it needs to get done. And I think we're all really clear, and the folks tuning in and the folks in our coalitions and on our teams are clear. So my question is, not only is paid leave good for small business, I think we've established it's essential for small businesses to be able to treat their workers with dignity, for the owners of small businesses to be able to support their employees and be good community members. So my question is, now that folks have learned a little more, I would love to hear from each of you as a final word, because unfortunately our time together is limited, although I think we could all talk forever. What's the way you'd like to see them join you in this movement? And maybe Mel and Elisha, if you guys want to share first, since I think there's probably some ways folks can tap in Minnesota immediately.
That's a good question. I would say having that grassroots presence is important. And so for folks, who aren't in Minnesota or aren't able to make it to the Capitol, being able to continue like putting pressure, drawing attention to this issue at the national level. So for example, yesterday we were trending on Twitter, apparently, hashtag paid leave MN. And so that's something that folks from outside of Minnesota can absolutely help with. It's just like posting on socials, drawing attention, putting pressure, because the decision makers are watching those channels. And then I think continuing to, just like speak about us, I guess, as you organize in your communities, because I would love to learn from all of you also. And just want to give a shout out to Elisha, who is going to be joining us at our Heal Day next week in DC. So we're bringing all these stories with us to a national level, stories from her, but also stories from the other small business owners that she's heard from, and as she, organizes in her community. And so, being able to like, I don't know how to explain it, but just like drawing a thread and like weaving between these pieces.
Awesome. Alicia, anything you want to add? I'll have to look for you because our network is actually also coming to DC next week. So we'll all be
Oh,
talking paid
nice.
Congress next week.
Oh, nice. Super excited about that. For me, pretty much what Mel said. The people that are in Minnesota continue to support, continue to show up, and be present. And those that are not in Minnesota, continue to use our hashtag, continue hashtagging us, continue following us, continue pushing for it, and sharing to those that's around you, and just keep it the talk of town.
So thank you both. And Deborah, how about you? What would you like to see folks doing to tap in with the Colorado movement?
For business owners, certainly getting engaged with the fight for the national campaign, as well as in the rollout, talking about on social media, talking about with your employees, talking about with your customers about the policy and why it's important. And perhaps a call to action for conscientious consumers that are on the call. One of the best things you can do to support businesses that are proactively trying to provide paid leave to their employees, it looks very different. In states that don't have the benefit of a paid leave program, there's so many creative things business owners are trying to do to support their employees. And so giving them your time, your love, your support, shout outs on social media, but really just making sure that the businesses, especially in states that don't have paid leave, where those businesses are going above and beyond to do what they can within their means, that they get the love and the business, most importantly, that they need to remain in business and stay competitive, especially when they're doing things that other employers aren't doing.
Thanks, Deborah. And Gina, how about you?
There's so much, and I want to echo the voices of the people on this call who do such important state work. And I'll note that Prosperity Now is informed by people who are members of state and local organizations and who are advocates in their community. So you can find Prosperity Now online and become a community champion and help inform the work that I do and the rest of my colleagues do. And never be afraid to call your senator, call your representative, and give them a reminder. They're there to represent you, and tell them why this matters. Email, call, postcards, all the things. As someone who answered the phones and read the mail in a senator's office, trust me, it gets read and it makes a difference. And it's never a bad day to talk about paid leave to your elected officials or to your community members, and get some people riled up and ready to get in the fight.
Thank you so much. And for anybody who's watching and is curious how to jump in the fight, I encourage you to follow Family Values at Work on all platforms. I know that federally, there will soon be legislation with this Congress focusing on paid leave and paid sick and safe days. So we would love to have you join us and join our movement and plug in with folks in the states. And I just want to end on a note of gratitude. We are so lucky that as a movement, we have folks who are focusing federally, who are focusing in the states, who are focusing in their communities, because we're going to win paid leave for all folks and all families and all different job types. So thank you everyone for tuning in today. Thank you for your time and your energy. And we look forward to winning in all 50 states and federally. Thanks, y'all.
Yes, thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.